get scene 21, alternate scene 16. This is sort of like a recreation of the Carla scene in Norwegian, where Big Frank is breathing repeatedly as he's about to assault her.
Yeah, and I use the Masters of Reality song called "The Blue Garden." And this is a band that I forget it's called sort of like stoner rock, but this was a band that in the late '80s had, and the band is named after a Black Sabbath song called "Master of Reality." And so they were called the Masters of Reality. The guy Chris Goss is the founder and lead singer of the song. And this is really a great song. It's a great album. And I wanted to use this because if you look at the lyrics, it goes, "Then when the circle spoke, the light fell, the spell broke, come down on me." The lyrics are kind of opaque. And so this is an example where my writing actually makes the lyrics more pungent. Because it's basically the death of Candy. We see some Goombas come in, they kill her, they put a bag over her head, and then we hear the end of the song, and then I saw a strange light, an angel smile in the red morning light. Then during this solo, the red light consumes the stage, and the dead Candy walks the center stage and stands still in a red spotlight as the solo and end of the song plays out. We get the end of the song, and then as the last strains of the organ pipes fade out, Candy stands still, and then we get a young Candy. So we've had a young Danny, an older Danny, and now we get the young Candy, and she says, "Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Candace Evelyn, blah blah," and then she starts singing this hymn called "I Need Thee Every Hour," which is an old Christian hymn. And in this one, we get the sense, the alternate version basically just drops the song, the Masters of Reality song. We still get the sense that she's been killed, and we get the little girl. But this is one of those things where I couldn't really add anything into it. The best way, just like with the Derek scene where we drop the song and we just see Derek kill himself, I just collapsed the scene in the alternate scene and dropped the song. But I really think this is a very effective use of the song. And I think this is probably the best example in this play where the song is made better by being in the circumstances that the play provides around it. And this is a good example of me writing to the other source material, crafting the story around the song, just like I did with Candy's Going Bad, and even Black Betty, and some of a couple of other songs. The Slipped Inside This House song is another example.
Then you get Betty and Davy in bed, waking up, and they have it's 180 degrees from the previous scene.
Right. So I wanted to show Candy. Of the two girls, Candy seems to be the more adventurous one, maybe because she's white rather than black. Betty might be a bit more circumspect. Candy ends up, we hear it from Candy's Going Bad, she steals something. She's sort of more rebellious than Betty. Black Betty is more sort of in touch with herself. And I wanted to give sort of this, the song that's used is Good Morning Starshine, and it's from the musical Hair, because we mentioned Hair. And I wanted to reuse at least one song from a classic 60s or so musical, whether it was Godspell, Hair, Jesus Christ Superstar. This was the song that stuck out to me, and it's a love song. Good morning, starshine. And it's a great song to use here because these people don't really love each other, but it has this really, glitty, gloopy, gloopa, ba da boo 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 boo. It has this nonsensical 60s lava lamp, drug-addled kind of usage to it. And Betty and this Davy, who we've never seen before and won't ever see again, he's probably a John that maybe she's giving a freebie to or something. And they sing the song, and then later on, here's another example, though. In the alternate version, I actually prefer the Frere Jacques song, which is used as the canon. Frere Jacques, dormez-vous. It had, because, and I think the link that I have to YouTube is a very simple, very touching version of the song. And the idea of two lovers, even if they're not really in love, but two sex partners singing this back and forth to each other works in a sense almost better than the original song, although I love the original song. And so this is one of my favorite scenes because I think both versions work really well in establishing that Betty, isn't just a hooker. Betty is a person who has feelings.
Mm. Yeah, I see that too. I like both versions quite a bit. I think they both have different things and show different facets of the relationship.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where you have to know with songs, whether they're the alternate or the original rock songs, how to use them effectively. If you look at most musicals, whether it's something like Oklahoma, oh, what a beautiful morning, you have out of maybe 12 or 15 songs in your typical musical, maybe 2 or 3 that really are good songs or songs that are effectively used. I think I have a much higher success rate here, especially in the pure rock version, but even in some of the alternate versions, like with Frere Jacques, with Daisy Bell, and so forth, I think I have a good hit rate.
Then we get to another drop scene, scene 23, scene dropped an alternate version, with Danny and his dad. Tell me why you dropped this scene. This is where you use Love is Blue.
Yeah. And there really wasn't anything that I used the Andrews Sisters song earlier for my dad. I used
I thought perhaps because you thought it was redundant.
Well, we don't need to know that much. Well, I think Danny and Eddie's relationship is established, but here we get a bit of his father's Great Depression era self coming out. Wanting. We're gonna, we have to go in, as if the CIA is watching them. You have to go to this register with these coupons. I'll go to this one. My dad used to have these elaborate plans, and it was just so silly. And Danny sees through this, just like he sees through Pastor Stagey and the religious stuff. Danny just doesn't understand why his dad does this. But anyway, I think overall it's a good scene. It's not one of the better scenes, and I drop it because it's not an essential scene. But it adds a little bit more, in the full rock version.
And the same could be said of scene 24, where your dad is engaging with Long Island Republican types. You have the Steppenwolf song "Monster" playing in between these scenes of him arguing and going on errands.
And this is probably my least favorite scene, but I wanted to use it because it's a scene that captures very much. This was a song that came out in 70 or 71, a couple of years after the height of the flower power stuff. This came out right around the time of the shooting at Kent State, when Nixon ordered the National Guard to shoot at college students. And so, and the song itself is a little bit too blatantly, the lyrics are a little bit they're too out there, but it's a song that my dad, I know, would have been very in sync with had he ever heard the song. I doubt he ever did. And I thought it was a good way of establishing it. But again, it's not necessary to get Eddie and Danny's relationship and Eddie's character by this point.
Then we have scene 25, where Danny is at New York Mets baseball uniform. They seem to be... he's interacting with a character named Joey, who we haven't seen much from yet, and Billy.
Well, Joey goes back to the second play. It goes back to If God Were Alive. Joey Stroman is the son of Aunt Darla. That's Danny's cousin. So it's been almost 50 plays since we saw Joey. But Joey, as we find out, was in the military, but he got lucky. He didn't get sent to Vietnam. He was sent to East Germany. It was a border guard. And so this introduces the character named Billy Watson, I think it is. And Danny and Joey and Billy go to an Italian restaurant. They meet there, and Joey is the lead singer. Danny's the backup singer. They sing the theme song from Welcome Back, Kotter, the television show. Welcome back, giving a welcome back to the returning hero. And then in the alternate version, of course, we get the more traditional When Johnny Comes Marching Home Again, which is the welcoming back song from the 19th century, except it's When Billy Comes Marching Home. And basically, this scene basically just brings the character of Billy, who then gets involved with Black Betty later on. So this is his introduction, and so we're about 2/3 or 3/4 in, and this is the beginning of the end of the play, where narratively.
Yeah, it then leads into when they're wandering the city, summer in the city, uh, hot town summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirty and gritty. It's a interesting scene, but I could again see why you dropped this one
Yeah,
simply because of Danny and Georgie's relationship has already been established in prior scenes.
yeah, and it's also a callback because the guy John Sebastian, who wrote the Welcome Back song, was also the lead singer of the group that sang this song, the Love Spoonful, and so there's also a connection there. But again, yeah, it's redundant in that sense, and so it's again it's a scene that would be just 3 or 4 minutes within the play. It would be a breather scene before we head into the final, uh, uh, end of the play.
Can you see producers using these scenes in anything?
Well, I think in the rock version, yeah, they would be. You have to understand too. This would be a big play, and the reason that we have these breather scenes is when you have a lot of these casts or whatnot. These characters are going to be running backstage and changing into different clothes and whatnot. So you need to have 4 or 5 minutes because you're going to have maybe 2 or 3 minutes of the lights down. Then you have a 4 or 5 minute musical number, and then so that gives them 10 minutes for the characters to change. Whoever's playing Betty might need to change. You know.
Yeah, I think this would probably go on as long as O'Neill's longest plays. I think the Electro Cycle.
Well, this play. I mean, if you get rid of at 62,000 words or so, if you get rid of the alternate versions, you're probably down to about 47,000. If you if you know that the singing is going to take a lot less time than speaking, this would probably play out about the length of a 38 to 40,000 word play. So this would be about the length. This would probably end up being about the same length as a play like the one with the wacky old lady that and the fat daughter that they think is a genius. It would be a long play, but a long musical, longer than your typical musical, but it wouldn't be super long.
But that would probably be your con play still.
The con plays, what they came in at like 40. They were like 40 and 45,000, so it would be probably around that, maybe a little shorter, around the same.
Thus far, then, as played, If God Were Alive would be your longest play on stage.
Yeah, it would be. It would time wise be the longest. It's 3,000 words less, and right. But again, removing the song lyrics, knowing that the songs would be sung quicker than and the songs are broken up. There's a lot of white space in the songs too. So
That brings Danny and Billy back to Wyckoff Avenue and Stephen Street. Um, Speak a little bit about that. Billy's just back from now. A few weeks ago, he's pals with my older cousin. It's They again refer to Teddy Limbo
yeah.
and Valley.
So basically, we get the action starts picking up. We get Danny introducing Billy to not to Candy, to Betty, Billy and Betty. So here we have interracial sex. Here it seems that they develop a bond because there's a blackout, and then all of a sudden, an indeterminate amount of time has passed. Is it a week or whatnot? We see Billy and Betty running back. A shot has been fired. Teddy Limbo is dead, and they see Danny on the street and say, "Danny, you got to hide us or whatnot." And Danny has been cast as this. He knows everybody. He knows where to hide. So Danny takes him to some kind of hiding spot in an alleyway, which of course proves to be a wrong move because if someone's after you, you want to have a way to get out. You don't want to be in an apartment at the end of an alley. And then we go into the Doors song, Peace Frog. And we get Danny and them running basically in place like in a 1930s musical as the streets and the street lights go by. We get different scenes of the 1960s and 70s stuff as Danny's running and whatnot. And then as the three of them are running with Danny there. And in the alternate version, instead of Peace Frog, we get a Bela Bartok string quartet, which is a very discordant sound. And so we'd still see the 60s imagery, but instead of Jim Morrison and the Doors, we'd get Bela Bartok. And I think it's probably maybe the better, it might be the best use of the classical music as an almost equal substitution for the rock version song.
I think this is correct me if I'm wrong, it's the only one that actually has Morrison or a male voice. that there's a choice between that instead of one of the cast members singing it.
Yeah, because since we're seeing them running, no one is singing it. Billy isn't singing it. Danny isn't singing it. Betty's not singing it. So it's someone else singing it. If you could get the rights to the Morrison song, eventually when they aspire to Morrison's, the Doors version, it'll be Morrison. If not, maybe you could license it more cheaply if you just allow them to sing the song. But whatever. It basically is them on the run and Danny making a big error in basically making it too difficult for them to escape when they've got people after them.